Okay. This week, I would like to speak about Lucifer. And, we have grown up, and in the programming that we've had, it has always been Lucifer, this very bad thing. And there was a lot of fear in just the mentioning of Lucifer, and it was like satanic. So of course we became afraid of anything that had to do with Satan, anything that had to do with Lucifer. But as you're waking up, as we are all waking up, we know that there's nothing, everything has to exist in the Father. And so everything has to have a purpose. And nothing in the Father is what we would call evil on his level. Nothing. Now, where we have descended to, because there's really a lot of activity that would seem to be contrary to what we want to do or what we think we should be doing, we find that there is evil in our space, in where we are, okay? To where we have fallen to. In this third dimensional world, we can identify with what we could relate to as evil and relate to as what is right. But it's all to bring us to the place that we ascend to the area of being able to love each other. You know, the sixth house of the house of Yahweh, as is in Revelations, talks about this body that is all about brotherly love. And these are the ones who are actually being accepted by the Father, the ones who are able to actually love everyone, love themselves also, love the Father, love everything, all life about them. They're the ones who actually that were actually awakened, and the Father actually accepted, because those are the ones that's ascending. So today, what I would like to do is to restore Lucifer, if you will, restore the concept of Lucifer in our minds, so we're not afraid of Lucifer, because there's no need to be afraid of Lucifer, because you are going to fulfill the office of Lucifer at some point in your travel back to your Father. It's just that simple. You have to take that office somewhere along the line before you return to your Father. So now, the prophets were individuals who were able to still themselves, and based upon them stilling themselves to what you would call going into the secret place or into the closet, if you will, they were able to come in contact with a higher dimension, higher world. And of course, that dimension has beings that they would call, they may call Yahweh, or are beings that were individuals that had been in the family that had left the earth, but they were able to communicate with those individuals, just as Yahshua did on the mountain of transfiguration. Okay, well, he basically was dealing with some of the individuals who had preceded him. They had come before him, and they were righteous men, but these were souls that had become, perfected in their manner, and they had transitioned the earthly realm, and they had moved on. So just as Yahshua was communicating with those individuals based upon what he was doing, of course, the Bible didn't tell you that he was meditating, but that's how he was able to lead the other apostles into that. He led them in a meditation, and they were able to come to that particular place. Okay, so now Yahshua was very advanced, but as we're coming into that place and we start to still ourselves, then we have the different area of brain activity that brings us to the stillness of where we meet this world or this dimension, the prophets, when they reached that, they were given information in a manner which they could relate to. So information is given to them, okay, and they're able to relate to the information, or those who gave them the information didn't give it to them on the really, really high spectrum that they couldn't really get it based upon their programming in the world. They gave it to them in an area where they could relate to it in where they lived, in the third dimensional world. Okay, so, the prophets, Isaiah, Yekizkiah, whatever, they related to the information that they wrote. And they spoke out this information, or they spoke about this information in a manner that others could relate to what they were saying. But what they were saying wasn't all what it was all about, because they could only relate to what they saw based upon what they could actually get their minds to wrap around. So they couldn't really say everything, and they couldn't really bring it to everybody else the way that they understood it in that dimension that they were in. They could only come in and express it with the language that they had during that time, which was highly limited. Well, this is kind of the same thing that Moshe went up to the mountain, okay, and he was there, and he was given certain messages. He was given a message. Now, this mountain that he went up to wasn't a mountain as in the physical world. No, this is the mountain of Yahweh. This is the abode of Yahweh where we left. Okay, it's another dimension. We left that dimension because we wanted to fulfill something else. Okay, so we, based upon our desires and our passions, we left that dimension. And so now we're trapped in where we came to. Just like the prodigal son, this is actually what we did. So Moshe actually was able to cross that veil. He went on the other side of that veil, if you will, okay? And on the other side of that veil, he received a message also. And so he was there now coming back to the children of Israel, trying to relate that to the children of Israel. But of course, the children of Israel was not going to get that. They didn't want to hear that because it just wasn't for them based upon where they were. So what Moshe gave them was something that they could relate to in their space, knowing that everything coming from the Father down to every single world that comes down to us has some kind of distortion anyway, as it comes down into the lower worlds, into the lower fields. They all do. Okay? Until everything returns back to the Father. This is when everything comes back to where it's at. So now in it now, we have that which came from the Father coming down to the lower world. And of course, we have spoken about Lucifer being that which was an office, okay, are protectors of the creation that's in this world right here. And its duty was to bring forth light. This is the office of Lucifer. And of course, our duty is to restore that office. So in essence, restoring Lucifer, restoring the office that brings light into the world. Because in the Luciferian rebellion, light was no longer being brought forth, or light was being brought forth, but in the sense that it was obscured. Okay, so in the manner in which the Luciferians are who were going to bring the light in, they brought it forth in the manner in which they felt that it should be done. And this is actually what caused all the earth to become without form and void. And of course, let there be light has to come in again to restore light. So this is what's happening right now, and this is the end days of a particular earth age, where the restoration of light has to come in. And at the end of that and the beginning of the next age, you find people waking up. So now there's something going on, and we're going to look at what Lucifer has really done, or those who moved off in the area of this rebellion, what they have actually done to lead everything to themselves. So they didn't necessarily want service to move out to the Father, just as the prodigal son came into the earth and he was dealing with things in the earth. And then all of a sudden he had to see beyond that which was there in his space. And he has to look back to his Father and start to move out of the consciousness that he was in. He had to move out of that to return to his Father. Well, the Luciferians want to hold you, or those who actually hold that office right now, which has come to the end of their office. They actually have lost their office. It's just about gone. It's a, all that's happening right now is to create the separation of who are going to be moved into different categories. That's all that's really happening right now. But the Father has already selected whatever has to be selected, and everything is just simply move into the area where they're magnetized to. So that's what's really going on. So now we have these who want to keep control of the earth. So in order to keep control of the earth, they have to really get humanity to move away from total service to their source. It has to be that. And then somehow get humanity to serve or give some of the service that they have for the Father to these that are called the Luciferians, or those who are in the Luciferian rebellion. Now, well, all you need to create a problem with the Father, or to not be pure in the Father, is to move off in some kind of manner. And that's all we need to do. Now, today, if we look in the earth, we see the things that we have become subject to. Today, we feel that we have to make money, especially in the Western world. We feel we have to make money, and it has come to this because this is our reality, in order to live. If we don't, then life becomes really, really messed up for us, because we can't pay our rent, we can't pay mortgage, we can't buy food. There's nothing that we could do without money. But money is a creation of these guys who are not bringing forth the light, but they have moved off in another space. And they're actually, what their duty is to get you and I to plug into them. So in order to plug into them, they have to create a whole new reality for us. And that reality is really absent much of what the Father has given us. So what we're doing actually is giving to these others much of what should be given to the Father, because we're desiring it. We're desiring exactly what they want us to desire. So when we're desiring those things, this is in our hearts. And so if it's in our hearts, this is actually what our creation becomes. We start to create what they have fed us. This is a conception. We are conceiving them. This is where the lower man, okay, or our devils come. And of course, this is where the conception comes, and we start to bring forth their seed. But we don't know it because we're programmed into it. So we go out and get a job for their society, and they have taught us that we are successful when we make money. Okay, we're not successful when we can reach the Father. That's not necessarily success. Nothing is spoken about in that arena, really. Really, what is spoken about is how much money you have to do what you want to do, to travel, to get what you want to, all those things. This is actually what we have bought into. We have sold ourselves and bought this. Now, Yahshua told us, however, that we have to sell all that and to restore the Father. He said the man who comes to the point that he recognizes what the kingdom is all about, he goes and sells all that he has. Well, all that he has is not necessarily his home and clothing and whatever, and he becomes homeless and just walks the streets. No. We have taken in much within the person. This is why during the 40 days that's coming up, what we call the 40 days, it's a great opportunity to check self, look at yourself and see all that you have attached to you over the year or over our lifetimes. We have been programmed for certain things, and actually move or work to put those things down in order for us to get a better connection. Okay, in order for us to get a better reception. It's just like tuning a radio. Okay, and sometimes it is hard to get that station because it's a little staticky, whatever, but the right tuning and the right move of the knob, you could get it just so that you could hear the message coming. Well, this is exactly what we need to do. We have to put ourselves down, the ego. We have to control that ego and get that ego to work as it did at the beginning before we found. That's what we have to do. Okay, it's called killing the ego, but it's not killing it. It's making its activity moving its activity back to what it was previously. Like we spoke about Shem, Ham, and Japheth last week, and Shem and Japheth, they went backwards to undo exactly what Ham did. Well, this is the same thing. We have to do the very same thing. We have to get the ego back to, we have to undo whatever was done, that the ego has come to the point now that it has been hijacked. We have to move that back. Now, in this world that has been created for us, let's go over to Ezekiel chapter 28. This world that has been created for us or prepared for us by those who actually don't want you and I to reach outside of this form and void, but they want to hold us in this space. Now, the Father is not going to do anything about it right now because the Father used them in order to prepare his plan, the way that his plan is going to take place. Those guys are playing a part, and he knows who is going to be what, and everybody who is going to overcome, if you will. There's really no overcoming, but in our world, yes, there is overcoming in this dimension that we're in, because we have to learn to grow, to not be dependent. If you know, like for instance, if you're a drug addict, well, how do you come to the point that you become clean? They call it overcoming that. Well, so, but the soul is not stuck in there. The soul is not stuck where the personality is at. So in the where the personality is dealing with, whatever the personality is dealing with, the personality in our world has to overcome, but there's nothing that the soul has to really overcome. So there's really, in the true sense, there's not really an overcoming. Okay? So, but in our world, which is separate, because we have become separated because of our own desires, we are in this place that now it is said we have to overcome. But what we're really overcoming is ourselves. We're overcoming our programming. That's all we're doing. So Ezekiel chapter 28, we're going to look at those who have us programmed and how we have allowed ourselves to become kind of stuck in their form. So now if you go to verse 14, okay, let's go to verse 13. It says, you were in Eden, the garden of Yahweh. Every precious stone was your covering. And it goes and it names all these stones, okay? Then it says, the workmanship of your setting and mounting were made of gold. In the day you were created, they were prepared for you. Now, so this right here, when it's talking about these stones, that's the covering. This is giving this person an office, because all these stones are personalities, okay, living personalities that are subordinate to this particular entity. And we have to, when we read it, as the prophets are saying, the prophets are speaking this information based upon how they got it, and they have to relate it to the reader in their language. And when you coming down to us, when you read it, you simply see it in the manner in which you have been programmed to comprehend your language in this world. However, it's speaking about much, much more. It's speaking about heavenly things. And based upon these heavenly things, earthly things have come into order. And as Yahshua said, how can I tell you about heavenly things if you're not understanding earthly things that I'm speaking to you in? Because this is how it's being dealt with. So with these earthly things that's being spoken of, it's speaking about higher things. So if you notice, there was a mounting that this individual had. That means they were set in a high place in an office. And all these stones, the children of the Creator, are stones. Okay? And they don't have to fall into order under somebody. But for the love of whatever they're going to do, they gladly set themselves up in a body, if you will. And in the body, you have everyone, a head, ears, hands, whatever the case is. Everybody simply just take their spot, and it's not a competition. They simply work for the benefit of the whole body or the whole family. This is our star family. And Yahweh is the head of our whole star family. He's the father. And we've all come out of that star family, and we find ourselves stuck in here. Okay? That's what we have done. We have all come out of that. So now, in this creation, all these stones that are mentioned as physical stones that you could dig out of the earth, no, there's no reason to take these physical stones and stick them on spirits. So it's not speaking concerning that. However, if you're going to create something in this earth that was going to represent this high spirit, it would be great for you to take those same stones in the earth and create something that would represent that spirit and put them there. Just as the children of Israel did with the stones for the breastplate, whatever, all those things. They took physical things in making something that would honor this great belief that they had. Okay, so now he says the workmanship of your settings and mountings were made of gold. Gold is pureness. In the day you were created, and of course, this creation is not a physical creation. This creation comes by thought. Okay, thought. The Father's thought. Now, what is the Father's thoughts? The Father's thoughts, these are his expressions. Okay, the expression is the Word. The Word is the only begotten Son, and everything comes forth from the only begotten Son, including now it's going to move off to do its job. Now it says, until iniquity was found in you, and this iniquity was due to the lust for power that came up or to do its own thing, and which actually caused even us to become cut off. We want to do something different than what the Father has said to do, and the Father is not going to stop that, because in the whole essence of everything, we have to want to do what the Father says to do, to be there, okay, to work in a certain place. Now, we could take off and we could go and create, and those are all experiments, and the Father is there with us creating whatever the situation is. However, whatever is created, is being created, has to be returned to the Father. And the only way it's going to come to the Father, it's if it is according to the Father's reality. So unless it's according to the Father's reality and what the Father wants, it can't fit. It has to be fixed. Okay, it has to be fixed. So as Solomon, who understood so much of this, if you notice, Solomon didn't take any of the stones that he was using to put on the temple. He didn't chisel them on the work site. He said, but they were fixed at a quarry off-site, and they were brought to the temple. And the temple is the body. The temple is the kingdom. The temple is your family. Okay, you have a temple, which is your physical body, and that temple right now, it could go into another physical temple, okay, that you live in, okay, or worship in, and this is the physical world. This is the physical world. However, you are the soul. That's a heavenly temple. When you put down the earthly temple, you have another tabernacle that you become awake into, which is your soul, okay? And the spirit is housed in that soul. Now, that's a tabernacle also, but that tabernacle is also belong to a greater tabernacle. This is why it's told to us, don't fear those who kill the physical body, but you got to think about the one who, after the physical body has been put down, still got control of the body. That now this trading is the same as merchandise, but it's traffic. And here you go. It is commerce. It is commerce. This is where we are stuck. They have lured us into the place of where we now become dependent in the midst of the heart. What else is going on in the heart? And what we find the same thing in our hearts because we have conceived. Okay, so yeah, in essence, okay, we're now at the place now that we're dealing with this commerce that they have subjected us to. Okay, and in this commerce, we have done so much to ourselves. We're doing. So now in Genesis 3, we're reading verse 6. The woman saw that the tree was desirable for food, that it was pleasant for the eye, and a tree desirable to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate it. She also gave it to her of this lower world. This is what we're doing. This is what is placed before us, and we desire it. So we conceive it. We conceive it. When we start living according to it, thinking according to it, okay, acting, speaking according to it, we are creating all those things for ourselves. And it's all coming from our midst, our hearts, our desires. And our desires attract our world. The world that we're wanting, it's attracting it based upon our thought process. Now let's go over to, still hold your place there in your kids and go over to Jeremiah. Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to do was to show us where everything, how we were being controlled, really, and through the forces that were being controlled through. So we're looking at these forces called Luciferians, okay, and in Yekisra 13, we looked at this entity that's in the garden of Yahweh, and all these stones are covering this entity. And these stones are not necessarily precious stones as we know them, like that's in the earth, because of course this is spirit. Okay, these stones are members of its body that it works with, okay, and or works through, and it expresses itself through these stones because there is covering. Okay, so it says the workmanship of your setting and mountain, they're made of gold. So they was set up and it was pure. It was supposed to be something that something else couldn't corrupt. And we could be the very same thing, incorruptible, but we corrupt ourselves. Okay, and it was like this in the day that they were created. They were prepared this way for this entity. In verse 14, it says, you were the guardian cherub. And in this book, it says, and I married you, but it's actually ordained. Ordained, set. When you ordain something, you set this thing in order. Okay, so this is what this was set in order. That's, like I said, the workmanship of your settings. This was set in order. On the holy mountain, or the kingdom, the family, you have walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. The stones of fire of all of us. We are all stones of fire. We're the children. Okay, so this mountain of Yahweh now is the family. It's the star family. We all came out of the mountain of Yahweh. We all came out of the same star family. We all came out of Yahweh. We came out of Yahweh, and we possess the spirit, which is of the mother. okay, which is in Yahweh, or a part of Yahweh, and we came through the Son that gave us the very same spirit of the Father, which is this female essence, if you will, that's in us, a spirit that is pretty much in everyone. And the only way for the Father to say we are all his, or all souls of mine, is if all souls came out of that individual. Just like I'm gonna say, that's my son, but guess how would that be my son? How would that be my daughter? The only way is for me to get with a wife, okay? And so it's talking about this here, I married you, whatever. And then we as one bring forth a son. But you know what the son does? Or they call it son. If that son brings forth the very same thing as the parents, it is bringing forth the parents' essence, which is actually in its DNA. It's bringing the DNA from mother and father. We went on, and in verse 15 it says, "You were perfect in the days, in your ways, from the day you were created." And the creation was by thought. It wasn't a physical creation that happened until iniquity was found in you. So it says here now, by the multitude of your merchandise, and this merchandise we're talking about, I think that's where I left off that you last heard. It's actually speaking about trading. If you read certain scripture, it says in the abundance of your trade. And this merchandise, this trade is merchandise, is traffic, is commerce. And this is where they have deceived us. They have deceived us into participating in the commerce, the violence of their commerce. And the violence of their commerce pretty much comes down to the point that it is something that's being done that is harmful to us. But we don't know it's harmful because it is desirable. So as we're reading a little more here, it says, by the multitude of your merchandise, you were filled, they have filled the midst of you, the midst. And that's what we're talking about. The midst of you is your heart. The midst of you is your heart. The midst of the temple, okay? You have 3 lower energy centers, 3 higher energy centers. In the midst is the heart. And it has filled the midst with violence. Why is it filling the midst? Well, the midst is where all the desires and passions are at. This is where we attract things. This is where when we think about things, this is where the creative power is all at. It's the magnet. Okay, so from that we went to Genesis chapter 3. And we're going to look at the midst a little bit here. The midst, which is the heart. The heart is the desires. Okay, so the desire body functions mainly with heart. So in Genesis 3, we look at verse 6. It says, so when the woman saw that the tree was desirable for food, that it was pleasant to the eye. Did you see that? It was desirable. They have to get you and I through what we're desiring, by what they put before us for us to go off track in our desires. That's why when Yahweh is going to deal with his children now, he says, I'm going to give you this garment that you won't go after your desires. You won't go after that. You will put those desires in check. But the serpent or the Luciferians want you and I to go after our desires, because that's how everything is created for them in here. So when the woman saw this, the woman moved to the desires, okay? And it is to make one wise. She took up its fruits and ate it. And she also gave it to the husband, and the husband also ate the same thing. So this is a conception now. Something is being conceived, and it's being conceived by their own will. This is the same thing that we're talking about when we're talking about this devil that we put together or we create. We are creating this devil based upon what we want. Now, if we hold our place there in Genesis, okay, and go over to Jeremiah chapter 17, Jeremiah chapter 17, we're talking about the desires, and what's in the midst. Now, in chapter 17, look at verse 9. It says, the heart, which is in the midst, is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And in some scriptures, it says, who can trust it? Well, the heart is where they're going to trip us up from. It has always been that. What do you want? What is your desire? Well, many people, the desire is to have a lot of money because they feel money is going to make them happy. Money is going to bring them things in this life. They could do what they want to do with money, but money is one of those things that they have used to bring us off this pedestal of the Father and actually cause us to become subordinate to them with things of this world, like money, because money gives us things of this world. Well, money is going to be all set up, if you will, in AI pretty soon. And to function with money, which is going to become, they're going to want it to become digital. You and I are going to have to function in a digital world. And in that digital world, it's going to be all subject to the cloud. And above the cloud, you're going to have these entities, which are those who are of the serpent here. And yeah, see where we're going. So it's telling us that the heart, and not the thing that's pumping within us, no, the things that we are desiring. It's the energy of the heart, okay? The things we desire, what we want. It says that we don't know it. Because when we chase after it, and we don't chase after what the Father has put there, that's why, again, that's why the Father gave us this garment, if you will, okay? The workmanship of your setting, and you were covered with all these precious stones, whatever, okay? He gave us this garment to be covered with that garment. And by that garment, we can check the passions and desires in our members. Without that garment, we can't know it. We're going to be deceived by it. Now let's go back over to Genesis 3 and look at verse 13 now. It says here, and Yahweh said to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me. Well, how did the serpent deceive her? The serpent deceived her through her desires. That's the only way they're going to get to you and I. They're going to get to you and I through our desires. And what they're going to do with those desires is connect us to their commerce. That's how it works in this earth. Okay? Everything is about federalism. Federalism is commercial law. It's when everything is functioning under a commercial law. And once you and I get into this commercial law, we have been, quote unquote, federalized, whether we know it or not. So what we're doing, we're bringing forth their world. Unless we put on the garment, and the garment has nothing to do with the telly that you stick around you. Well, for the children of Israel, that's what they wouldn't have gone to where you're being spoken of right now. So they had to do something that they could look at and touch, because that's the awareness that they were at. However, the awareness is not necessarily speaking of what you are going to see and touch, because the awareness is in you. The awareness is in your midst. That's where the awareness is going to be. And you and I have to reach that midst. But if you and I need to see something, touch it in order to get to that, well, so be it. And that's why Yahweh put that there, that Moshe allowed Moshe to do it in that manner, because the children of Israel weren't going to go there. So they allowed them to see something that they could relate to, so they could graduate from that gradually and get into the place that they could actually seek themselves from within. But to seek it from within, they also have to know that the heart could lead them off unless they were grounded in that which the Father has set up, because it's very easy to take off. Now, let's go over to Matthew. Okay, Matthew 13, 12, because as we read, it says in verse 16 of your kids here, it had said, by the multitude of your merchandise, or this commerce, they have filled the midst of you with violence. And it says, and you have sinned. So you and I have sinned, or we have followed the mode of this rebellion, because we have conceived it. We have conceived the very same thing that it has done, because we can relate to it. We took it on. We allowed it to program us in our minds. We speak in the manner it wants us to speak, okay? Think in the way it wants us to think, and we act according to that. And it's the perfect mode in which we create this world, or hold this reality that we have right now. We hold it up and live in it, suffering it, all that they want us to do. Okay, now in chapter 12 of Matthew, let's go to verse 33. 12 and verse 33. Okay, it says here, either make the tree righteous and its fruits righteous, make the tree righteous, and then the tree is going to bring forth righteous things, because that's what it's conceiving. That's what it has within it. It can only give what it has. It says, or else make the tree evil, and its fruits, that which it brings forth, iniquity. Well, they bring forth their fruits in the minds and hearts of the people. And the people create through the things that's in their minds and hearts. That's how they work. Everything that they do will be based upon what's in their minds and their desires. And so this is what's happening now. So the fruits, if we take part of that fruit, we're doing the same thing that Adam and Eve did, and we're making ourselves further subject to the lower essence of this planet, or this earth, or this sphere. Okay. So it says, for a tree is known by its fruits, by the things it produces. That's how it's known. Well, Yahweh's looking at everything also, and Yahweh's is not going to make anyone do what is considered a righteousness, or do what that we think or we consider to be evil, because everyone is going to be moved off into the place that they have created for themselves. Everyone is going to move off into their own frequency. If I am all about this world, well, I'm going to bury my talent in this world. If my world is of another kingdom, well, I'm going to bury my energy into that kingdom. But somehow I'm going to be separated from that which is only bringing forth things of the world. It's the natural course of events. It has to happen. And that's happening right now. Separations. Okay, so now in verse 34, we're looking at verse 34 of Matthew 12. Yahshua said to these guys, his brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak righteous things? For out of the abundance of the heart, whatever they fill the heart with, our hearts, and they fill it with the programming that they give us. The mouth is going to speak, and when we speak, it's the power of creation. It's the creative force that moves from us, because it is spirit, and that's what we do. When we believe what we're speaking, we are creating a magnetic field that brings it into the physical world. So when they control our hearts, okay, and they control our hearts in the violence of their commerce, when they do that, well, guess what's happening? Well, based upon our hearts, we're going to start desiring things. The things that we desire, we're going to speak about it. And we're going to act accordingly. And this is what you call the workings of faith. Okay? It's just what you want to believe in. Whatever you want to believe in, and whatever I want to believe in, and whatever I want to speak based upon the energy of what I believe in, I will start to move the forces to superimpose it in the physical world. That's all it is. So how do they do it? They keep you and I blind. They don't allow the light to shine in. And when the light does shine in from somebody else, guess what happens? They attack that person. That's the spirit that's there. And that spirit comes from egos of men, because men have the same spirit in them to trying to control and conquer their brethren. It's the same spirit that has captivated our egos. So now we have to come back and take the ego. If we're able to take the ego back, we're able to restore Lucifer as the true light bringer, the right office, and it will then stop obscuring the light to shine in through to men in this earth. But know that it's not a very easy course. It is not a very easy course, because, you know, people will see what you're saying and they will know something is different from what you're saying, but there's a spirit that's in the earth, or that's off the earth, and that spirit doesn't want light to shine in. Its job is to obscure the light and hide its works in darkness, so you can't see and I can't see. So now Yahshua is telling you, out of the heart, the mouth is going to speak. This is how we're creating. We're going to bear the fruits of our lips. This is creation. Okay, now they can't create on their own, because remember, it was taken from them. Their ability to bring forth life is gone. So guess how they're going to bring forth what they want? Through your heart, through your desires, through my heart, through my desires, through the hearts and desires of the world. Men and women, that's how they're able to do it. Get them plugged into the world of commerce. This is why they must go all over the world, and they have to push the same federalism everywhere. It may not be called federalism in another nation, but trust me, it's the same thing. Okay? Whether they want to call it the central bank, ECB, or whether they want to call it in the United States, they call it a whole different thing. And in Australia, they call it a whole different thing. It is all part of this one system that is bringing all of mankind into the creative process by using them to create exactly what they want to be created in this earth. But they have to keep you and I in darkness, and their fangs are plugged in us once we are accepting commercialism. So now we move on a little further. He goes into verse 35. It says, a righteous man from the righteous treasures of the heart brings forth righteous things, but the evil man from the evil treasures brings forth evil things from the heart, from our passions, from our desires. So they have to do one or the other. They have to do something to get there. And they don't just come and say, listen here, I want to get you to do something that is going to be violent to you spiritually. You're going to love it, but it's really going to be all about violence. It's going to fill you with violence in your heart, and you're going to be removed from your Father in heaven, and you're going to have to subject yourself to me, because you're going to sell your soul to me, and I'm going to own you. And you're going to create everything for me. Even though I am below you, you won't know that, because I'm going to control you from your midst. They're not going to tell you that. No, because all based upon deception. So you have sinned, it says, okay? You were filled with violence from the midst, and it says, which is the heart, what we do, our desires, and based upon that, we have moved away from our Father because we have taken certain things within our hearts and we have brought it forth. We have conceived it, and we're bringing forth what the devils do from the abundance of our hearts. Now, let's go back to your kids here, chapter 28. Okay? So based upon what's in our hearts now, let's look at what takes place. In verse 16, it says, you have sinned. It says, therefore, I will cast you as profane out of the mountain of Yahweh. This mountain of Yahweh is the heavenly state, the abode of what the Father is talking about. This is what it is. Okay? And so now there's a separation that has to take place. But the separation, Yahweh doesn't have to come and throw us out. No, it's simply the choices we make. We make the choices to go down into the lower depths, or we make the choices to ascend to the higher depths, based upon what's in the heart. So by what's in our hearts, we have moved in error. They call it sin, based upon the abundance that's within our heart. So we have to bring forth fruits of the heart. And if we bring forth fruits that's of iniquity, if you will, based upon what is in this serpent or the Luciferians here that separated everything, we are going to be separated, or as it's saying right here, be removed from the mountain of Yahweh, which is the heavenly state. In other words, guys, this is the fall. This is the fall. That's all it comes down to be. And we're moved from this heavenly state. Now let's go over to Job. Job chapter 31. Okay? Okay, so we're going to look at Job chapter 31. And in Job, we're going 31, we're going to look at verse 30. Let's start in verse 33. 33. This is what we have, this is what we do. Okay? Or this is what they cause us to do. If I have covered my transgressions, okay, so I have taken certain things and now I'm going to hide it. This is why no one can tell us anything, guys, because we become offended. We become offended when anyone try to tell us something that would bring correction or constructive criticism to us. We get offended. If someone comes amongst us and say, listen, you're not totally doing that thing right, let's look at it this way. Hey, most of us want to get offended. Something starts moving in our belly, our ears get hot, our eyeball starts to open up, and we start getting offended. Okay, so here goes now. If I have covered my transgressions, as Adam concealing my iniquity in my heart, not opening in the heart, so I could actually express the Father and be honest with myself, so I could actually let the Father in. That's how I'm going to do it. The Christians tell you, let Jesus into your heart. Well, you hear it all the time, but you really don't know, how do I let him in my heart? Or some people don't know that. But really what it comes down to is to be honest with your Father. Okay? It also means taking up your yoke, which is your responsibility, my responsibility, and walking with it. If I have a fault and I could see it, or someone else brings it and shows it to me, don't conceal it. Don't conceal it. Work to remove it, work to cleanse it, because that's what the Father has done. The Father has only brought someone else in front of us to help us to see what lives in us. That's all he has done. but we don't really want to see it because there's darkness all around. And what we want to do, we want to conceal everything. We want to push and repel everything that's going to tell us something that's contrary to what we want to hear. This is the ego protecting us from the Father, if you will. Protecting us so we will continue to walk contrary to what is going to actually help us to escape. That's what the ego does. So he always telling us here. He says, because I feared the great multitude, there are reasons why we'll do it now. We'll conceal it for different reasons. Dreaded the contempt of the clan, so I remained silent and would not go out the door. This is what happens. We hold these things to ourselves. Now, if we go back over to Yekitska, we're going to finish reading that one scripture. Okay, so it says, by the multitude of your merchandise, this commerce, they have filled the midst of you with violence. This is our heart's desires. We are chasing what they have put before us is all commerce. We have stepped away from the things of the Father, and we're looking at all that they have displayed in front of us, and we are chasing it. The whole world is wandering after it. Okay, so based upon that, because our hearts is filled with a certain thing, it says we have sinned, or we have erred, we have moved off the path. We have moved off. Therefore, I will cast you out as profane. Therefore, you and I are going to fall. We're going to go down into the deeper depths, into the lower world, because we're not looking out for what the Father's business is about, which is going to be the things above. So based upon what we're choosing to live according to the things of this world. Well, this world has to come to its end, if you will, not necessarily physically. It will, I guess, one day, a billion years from now, maybe come to its end, okay? But this earth, where it's at right now, it has to move from the consciousness that it's at and move into a higher one. And it's only going to take those who are able to go with it. It can't take those who are holding things back. It has to separate from them. Okay? This is why Ham goes into utter darkness, if you will, or utter destruction, or what you call perdition. There has to be a separation. There has to be a separation as far as those who are going to inherit the higher world, okay, which is a tenth. A tenth of them inherit this higher world. And then the rest of us, which we're all brothers, we're all going to be in this earth, bringing in the new world, bringing in children, having a life that's much longer than we do now. But we're not going to let the Hams or Hamites or the Canaanites, which comes from Ham, cursed be Canaan. Remember, outside are the Canaanites. We're not going to let them in. They're not going to be let in until a certain time period is up. And people have, again, set their hearts in the right place, because this is where we're losing it. We're losing a battle based upon our hearts. And when that heart is set in the right place, now these other entities could come in again. And based upon the fact that we will be holding our own, they will be trained in a different manner at that time. So now we're reading this. Okay, so therefore I will cast you out the midst of mountain of Yahweh and will destroy you. This is all the removal. Okay, you and I can't sense the signal of the heavenly body anymore. But the way that it's being spoken here is it's being done in the manner in which the prophet can relate. And then the prophet is taking whatever he had received, he's taking it and he's relating it to people based upon what he believes the people could relate to. Yahshua did the same thing. Yahshua had received certain things, and then he spoke it in a manner in which the people could relate it, and a lot of times he did it in parables. He's telling a story that they can relate to in the earth, but he's talking about something heavenly. Well, they're doing the very same thing. We are destroyed because we lack knowledge, and based upon the fact that we lack knowledge, we do things, okay, that cause us to move in an area that we become cut off from the senses, the signals, if you will, of the higher body. That's all it is. We have issues with the nervous system. That's what we have come to. So, okay, so now we move on a little bit here. Now, I'm going to go to a place where this is not scripture. This is not scripture. This is what man has written. Okay? Man has written in his law books. You can look in the Black's Laws Dictionary. I got this from the 4th edition. And it's the definition of commerce. Definition of commerce. The definition of commerce, it says intercourse by way of trade and traffic between different peoples or states. Now, when I'm reading this, don't just look at it as world, as this our world right here. Look at it from the level of this one who has deceived all humanity and has held them in darkness. Because what's happening, they're having intercourse with the people. That's how they spread their seed. And the people are bringing forth their seed. Okay? Between different peoples and states and citizens, inhabitants thereof, including not only the purchase, the selling of yourself, or the sale and exchange of commodities. You know what's a commodity in this in the universe right now? This universe we live in, you know what a commodity is? A commodity are the natural things, not just in earth. So you have rice, that's commodity. You have gold, that's commodity. You know something that's a commodity that no one speaks about really when you look at the stock market, whatever. But those who are the gods, they know this is the number one commodity. Number one commodity in the universe is DNA. DNA. The exchange of commodity. This is something that's going on. But also the instrumentalities and agencies by which it is promoted, and the means and applicants and appliances by which it is carried on, and the transport of persons as well as of goods, both by land and by sea. Well, that's what man has put there for you. But when you read it, know that it's in this earth because of something that's above. By the multitude of this commerce, they are making love to you. That's what they're doing. You and I could say, okay, now, man, this is what I want to do. I want this and I want that. But whatever it is that is going to be under them is going to come. They're going to want us to be hooked up with commerce. They're schmoozing us. We're being schmoozed. Now, if you go to Revelations 18, it's going to be our last scripture today. Revelations 18. Let's look in verse 3. We're coming on to the 40 days right now. We got to understand what's going on. Okay, so we could put a really great effort into what we're doing. Okay, Revelations 18, in verse 3, it says, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." Everybody has done it. We've all been born in it. Everybody. Now, fornication, guys, when I used to look at these Greek words and chase these words all over the place because I didn't know better and thought this was really what it was all about, this word fornication went back to pornography. Okay, it goes to porn. And it comes from a word that means to sell off, to trade yourself, trade yourself, or sell your soul into this lower world. Now, there are those who have been given talents. Remember the parable of the talents? You have those who are given 5, those who are given 2, what was given 1. And the guy who had 1, he hid his talent in the world, in the earth. Well, this is what Ham did, because Ham wanted production in this world right now. But what happened to the one that put all the stock in this world to promote this world? What the talent that he had was taken from him, and it was given to the one who was above all, which is where Shem, those of Shem would be. Because remember, when we looked at that scripture last week, it said Shem was going to be holding his abode, okay? And Japheth was going to dwell in the house of Shem. Okay, so he's going to be serving Shem because he's going to be in his house, not his own house, it's going to be in Shem's house. And it says Ham will be a servant to his brothers. Well, if he's going to be a servant to his brother, and one of his brothers is going to be Japheth, and Japheth is living in Ham, in Shem's house, that means Shem is going to be the one that's above, the firstborn, that's given a double portion. Everything that's being taken from that one that decides to hide everything in the earth is given to the head of the house. And that one is cast into utter darkness, because that's what happens to those of us who don't seek the higher ground. Why? Because we don't want it. So we get we get the things that we are desiring. There's no way to give that servant something that's above when the servant's heart is in that which is of the earth. And it can't go with the earth, because the earth is moving. You know, she's also raising in her level of consciousness, and she is ascending. So if someone wants to stay in where they're stuck in, they can't go with her. That's why it has to be cast into utter destruction, outside the city, outside the gates. It has to be there, but not because what Yahweh wants to happen, not because Yahweh said, I have destroyed you and removed you from this and that. No, that's what's in you already. Yahweh's in you, and the activities of what you and I decide to do, because the power that's within us from Yahweh causes us to choose what we want. And if we so choose for our lives to be set up on the things of this earth, well, we're going to inherit those things that the earth is leaving behind, because she has to ascend. But we can't go with her. We have to remain in a lower world. It says the kings of the earth has committed fornication with her. And the merchants, those who merchandise, traffic, commerce of the earth, have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. That's how she's getting us. The luxuries, the convenience, the iPhone, if you will. Okay? All these technologies, that's not bad of their own, but they're setting everybody up. Because those who are putting them into play, they have an agenda. They have an agenda for them. If it was those who were looking out for you, it would be a separate agenda. As Joshua says, listen, if, you know, he called these guys brood of vipers, he said, how can someone being evil bring forth something that is going to be beneficial for the people? We're not, if that's where we are. The only way we're going to bring forth something that is not violence based upon what's in our midst is if our hearts are really subject to the things of the higher world. That's the only way we could do it. Other than that, we're going to bring forth fruits of the lower world. Remember, the definition of commerce is intercourse by way of trade, by way of commerce. This is how she feels us. Okay? Getting your mind, my hearts, my heart, our hearts, my passion, your passion, our desires to become stuck in their world of commerce. And with that, I'll go ahead and close